My fingers were shaking as I stared at my phone screen, watching the three dots appear and disappear under Victoria Chun's name. My boss, my very married, very professional, very off-limits boss. This couldn't be happening. It had started so innocently. Well, as innocently as complaining about your boss to your best friend can be. I'd meant to text Maya about how Victoria had worn this navy blue suit to the quarterly review meeting that morning. How her presence commanded the entire boardroom. How I couldn't stop watching the way she gestured when she spoke. Maya knew about my ridiculous, impossible crush. Maya wouldn't judge me for the paragraph I just typed about how unfair it was that someone could be that intelligent, that powerful, and that devastatingly attractive all at once, except I hadn't texted Maya. The message had gone to Victoria herself. I'd realized it approximately 2 seconds after hitting send. Those 2 seconds stretching into an eternity as I watched the deliver notification appear under my mortifying confession. My heart had stopped. My breath had caught. And then I'd done what any rational person would do. I'd throw my phone across my apartment couch and seriously considered moving to another country. That had been 4 hours ago. 4 hours of pacing, of checking my phone every 30 seconds, of crafting and deleting resignation emails. Victoria hadn't responded. She'd seen it, the read receipt mocked me, but she hadn't responded until now. The dots appeared again. Stayed this time, and then her message came through. Jess, we should talk. Are you free tomorrow? Not at the office. I stared at those 2 sentences for a full minute. Not at the office. That could mean anything. That could mean she wanted to fire me privately, save me the embarrassment of a public termination. That could mean she wanted to report me to HR away from witnesses. That could mean my phone buzzed again. I'm not angry. I promise, just surprised, and we really do need to talk. Surprised. She was surprised. I thought about Victoria, her perfectly composed exterior, the way nothing ever seemed to rattle her, how she negotiated our company's biggest merger without breaking a sweat. I'd surprised her. I typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "Tomorrow works." Where? Her reply came instantly, like she'd been waiting. "There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. Brew and Pages, 10 a.m.? I knew the place. It was quiet, tucked away from the downtown business district. The kind of spot where no one from our office would accidentally wander in. The kind of place you went when you didn't want to be seen. "I'll be there," I typed back. The dots appeared once more, hovered, then disappeared without another message. I dropped my phone onto my coffee table and collapsed back into my couch. My mind racing through every possible version of tomorrow's conversation. None of them ending well. I arrived 15 minutes early, which was a mistake. It gave me too much time to spiral, to order a coffee I was too nervous to drink, to choose and then second-guess my seat 3 times. By the time Victoria walked through the door at exactly 10 a.m., because of course she was punctual, I nearly convinced myself to leave. But then I saw her. And I forgot how to move. She wasn't wearing a suit. In the 2 years I'd worked under her, I'd never seen Victoria in anything but pristine business attire. Today, she wore jeans designer. Perfectly fitted jeans and a cream-colored sweater that somehow made her look both softer and more intimidating. Her dark hair was down, falling past her shoulders instead of twisted into her usual neat bun. She looked younger than her 42 years, and somehow even more beautiful than she did in the boardroom. This was a mistake. All of this was a terrible mistake. "Jess," she spotted me immediately, offered a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and made her way over. "Thank you for meeting me." "Of course," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "I mean, you're my boss. If you ask me to show up somewhere, I show up." She winced slightly as she sat down across from me. "Right, about that. Here it comes," I thought. The firing. The HR report. The restraining order. "I don't want you to feel like this is a work obligation," Victoria said carefully. "What I mean is, yes, I'm your boss, but I asked you here as one person to another, not as your supervisor." I blinked. "Okay, I've been thinking about your text all night." She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup she'd brought with her, she'd ordered before sitting down. Efficient even in personal crises. I wasn't sure if I should respond at all, or if I should pretend it never happened, or if I should address it directly. I went back and forth for hours. "I'm so sorry," I blurted out. "I never meant to send that to you." It was supposed to go to my friend Maya. And I know that doesn't make it better because I was still talking about you, but I never wanted you to see it. And I completely understand if you want me to transfer to another department or if you need to let me go, Jess. Victoria's voice was gentle but firm, cutting through my rambling. I don't want to fire you. You're one of the best analysts I've ever worked with. Your insights on the Morrison account alone saved us from a significant mistake. I deflated slightly, relief and confusion warring in my chest. Then why are we here? Victoria took a long sip of her coffee, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked uncertain. Vulnerable, even? Because what you wrote, it wasn't what I expected. I know. It was inappropriate. It won't happen again. No, that's not. She stopped, set down her cup, and met my eyes directly. When Victoria Chen looked at you like that, with full focus and intensity, it felt like being seen all the way through. It wasn't what I expected because I didn't realize you felt that way. And it made me confront something I've been avoiding for months now. My heart started beating faster. What do you mean? She glanced around the coffee shop. We were alone except for a college student absorbed in their laptop in the far corner and the barista wiping down the counter. Still, she lowered her voice. I'm married, she said, and I felt my hope, that tiny treacherous spark I hadn't wanted to acknowledge, start to extinguish. I've been married to Robert for 14 years. We have a comfortable life, a beautiful home, mutual respect. On paper, it's everything I'm supposed to want. The way she said supposed to made me hold my breath. But about 6 months ago, things started feeling different. I started feeling different. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup, a rare nervous gesture. At first, I thought it was just stress from work or a midlife crisis or any of the other explanations that made sense. But then you joined my team. Oh. Jess. I have spent the last 8 months being professionally inappropriate in my own head, Victoria continued. Her words coming faster now, like she'd been holding them in too long. I've noticed what you wear. I've found excuses to review your work personally when I could delegate it. I've stayed late on nights you're working late, telling myself it's just dedication to the job. I've caught myself watching you during meetings when I should be paying attention to presentations. She laughed, a short, almost bitter sound. And then yesterday I saw your text, and instead of being offended or uncomfortable, all I could think was, she notices me too. I couldn't breathe. The coffee shop felt too warm, too small, too surreal. I shouldn't be telling you this, Victoria said, shaking her head. I know I shouldn't. You work for me. I'm married. This is every kind of wrong. But I spent all night lying awake next to my husband, realizing that I can't remember the last time you made me feel the way I feel when you smile at me in the hallway. Victoria, I'm not asking you for anything, she interrupted quickly. I needed you to know that I understand, that you're not alone in this, and that I'm sorry if I've done anything to encourage these feelings when I have no right to reciprocate them. But she wanted to. I could hear it in every word, see it in the way she was looking at me like I was something precious and forbidden all at once. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. I don't know. She looked down at her hands. I need to figure out my marriage. I need to be honest with Robert. I need to do this the right way, whatever that means. But I couldn't let you think you were alone in feeling. Whatever this is between us, and in the meantime? In the meantime, we stay professional. We pretend this conversation never happened. Her phone buzzed on the table between us. She glanced at it and something in her expression shifted. It's Robert. I should have told him I was meeting a colleague about work. The word colleague stung more than it should have. Victoria stood, gathering her things, and I stood with her. For a moment, we just looked at each other, the air between us charged with everything we weren't saying. Thank you for meeting me, she said formally, already slipping back into her professional persona like armor. I'll see you at the office on Monday. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She turned to leave, made it 3 steps toward the door, then stopped. When she looked back at me, her composure cracked just enough to let me see the person underneath. For what it's worth, Victoria said softly, that navy suit? I wore it because you mentioned once that blue was your favorite color. I've been that far gone for a while now. Then she was gone, the bell above the door chiming her exit. And I was left standing in an empty coffee shop with the taste of coffee and possibility on my tongue. Monday. Morning arrived with all the subtlety of a car crash. I'd spent the weekend replaying our conversation, analyzing every word, every glance, every weighted pause. I told myself that Victoria was right. We needed to stay professional, pretend nothing had happened, maintain appropriate boundaries. I'd practically given myself a TED Talk about workplace ethics and the sanctity of marriage, and then I walked into the office and saw her standing by her door, talking to Marcus from accounting, laughing at something he'd said. She was wearing a different blue suit, deeper than navy, almost sapphire. When she glanced up and our eyes met, just for a second, I saw her smile falter. She'd worn blue again, Earth to Jess. Maya appeared at my elbow, her perfectly manicured eyebrows raised. You okay? You've been staring at the same email for 5 minutes. I blinked, realized she was right, and quickly closed my laptop screen. Maya was my closest friend at the office. The one person who knew about my Victoria situation, or at least, she'd known about the hopeless crush part. I hadn't told her about Saturday's coffee shop confession yet. Hadn't known how to put it into words. I'm fine, I lied. Just tired. Maya pulled up a chair, her expression shifting from curious to concerned. Jess, I've known you for 3 years. You've got that look. What look? The something happened with Victoria look. She lowered her voice. Did she say something about the text? Oh God, please tell me she didn't fire you. She didn't fire me. I glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. Maya, she told me she has feelings for me too. Maya's eyes went so wide I thought they might fall out of her head. She what? Saturday. We met at that coffee place on Maple Street. She said she's been noticing me, thinking about me. That seeing my text made her realize. I stopped. The words feeling too big, too impossible to say out loud. Holy shit, Maya breathed. Holy shit, Jess, what are you going to do? Nothing. She's married. She needs to figure out her situation. We're staying professional. Professional. Maya gave me a look that said she found this about as believable as I did. Right, and how's that going? Before I could answer, my computer pinged with a new message. From Victoria. My heart did an acrobatic routine in my chest. Meeting in my office in 10. Need your input on the Hastings proposal. It was perfectly professional. Perfectly normal. Exactly the kind of message she'd sent me dozens of times before. I have to go, I told Maya, already standing. Jess. She caught my wrist. Be careful. I know you have feelings for her, but she's still your boss. And she's still married. Don't let yourself get hurt. I knew she was right. I knew all of this was dangerous territory. But when I knocked on Victoria's office door exactly 10 minutes later and heard her call, come in, I went anyway. She was standing by her window, looking out at the city skyline, her posture rigid. When she turned to face me, I saw the same tension I felt reflected in her expression. Close the door, she said quietly. I did, my pulse racing. There is no Hastings proposal, Victoria admitted. I just needed to see you. To make sure Saturday was real and not something I imagined in a moment of weakness. I stayed by the door, afraid to move closer. It was real. This is impossible, she said, but she was walking toward me now. You know that, right? This whole situation is impossible. I know. I'm your boss. I'm married. I'm 20 years older than you. There are about 17 different reasons why this can't happen. I know, I said again. Victoria stopped in front of me. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something subtle and expensive that I'd never been able to identify. Close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her dark eyes, the tiny worry line between her brows. Then why, she whispered, can't I stop thinking about you? The question hung between us, unanswerable and dangerous. I could feel the pull of her, magnetic and undeniable, drawing me in like gravity. I've been married for 14 years, Victoria continued, her voice barely audible. I've never cheated. Never even been tempted. Robert is a good man. He's kind, he's stable. He's everything I thought I wanted when I was 28 and trying to build my career and my life into something respectable. What changed? I asked. I did. She laughed softly, sadly. Or maybe I finally stopped pretending to be someone I'm not. I've spent so much of my life doing what was expected of me, Jess. The right schools, the right career, the right marriage. I built this perfect life, and somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask if it was the life I actually wanted. She reached up, hesitated, then let her hand fall back to her side. And then you walked into that first team meeting in your gray blazer with your bright ideas and your brilliant smile. And something in me just woke up. Victoria, I'm going to talk to Robert, she said, her decision sudden and firm. I should have done it months ago. I can't keep living in a marriage where I'm thinking about someone else. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to anyone. My breath caught. Are you sure? No, she smiled, fragile and real. I'm not sure about anything right now except that I can't keep pretending. But Jess, I need you to understand something. Even if I do this, even if I leave my marriage, there are no guarantees. I can't promise you a happy ending or a perfect relationship, or even that I won't mess this up spectacularly. I'm not asking for promises. What are you asking for? I thought about that. About what I wanted, what I was willing to risk, what this might cost both of us. A chance, I said finally. Just a chance to see what this could be without all the barriers and the guilt and the pretending. Victoria studied me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. Okay. I'll talk to Robert this week. I'll be honest with him. And then she paused. And then we'll see. Before I could respond, her office phone rang, shattering the moment. Victoria glanced at it, then back at me, and I saw her slip back into her professional mask. We should get back to work, she said. But her eyes told a different story. I nodded and turned to leave. My hand on the doorknob when her voice stopped me. Jess? I looked back. Thank you, Victoria said, for being patient with me while I figured this out. I know it's not fair to ask you to wait. I'll wait, I told her, and meant it as I walked back to my desk. Maya caught my eye and mouthed, "What happened?" I just shook my head, unable to put into words the strange mix of hope and terror churning in my stomach. Victoria was going to leave her husband. For me, maybe, possibly, what had I got myself into? The messages started that night. The first one came through at 11:47 p.m., right as I was finally starting to drift off to sleep. Are you awake? Just 2 words from Victoria, but they sent my heart racing. I stared at my phone screen, debating my response. This felt like crossing a line, like stepping from the professional world into something dangerously personal. Yes, I typed back. The 3 dots appeared immediately. I can't sleep. Robert is in Boston for a conference. The house is too quiet, and all I can think about is our conversation today. Another message followed before I could respond. Is this okay? Me texting you like this? I know I said we should stay professional, but I don't know how to do that anymore. I sat up in bed, my exhaustion forgotten. It's okay. I can't sleep either. For a moment, nothing. Then, what are you thinking about? Everything I wanted to say. I'm thinking about your perfume in your office. I'm thinking about the way you looked at me when you said you talked to Robert. I'm thinking about all the ways this could end badly and the one way it might end perfectly. Instead, I wrote, I'm thinking about you. Jess, even through text, I could hear the weight in my name. We need to be careful, I know. If anyone at the office found out we were messaging like this. I know, I repeated, a longer pause this time. I could almost see her in her house, probably in her home office, or maybe lying in bed in the dark like me, trying to figure out what to say next. Tell me something about yourself, Victoria's message finally came through. Something I wouldn't know from your resume or your work. Something real. It was such a simple request, but it felt intimate in a way that made my chest tight. This was Victoria wanting to know me. Not just her employee, but just the person. I thought for a moment, then typed, I wanted to be a writer when I was younger. I used to write these elaborate stories in notebooks I kept hidden under my bed. My parents thought I should pursue something more practical, so I went into business. But sometimes I still write late at night when I can't sleep. What do you write about, lately? Complicated women who make me feel things I shouldn't feel. I hit send before I could second guess it, my heart pounding. Too much? Too honest? Her response came quickly. Can I read something you've written? Absolutely not. It's terrible, embarrassing. I doubt that. You have a gift with words. I see it in your presentations, your emails. Even that text you meant to send to your friend, it was beautifully written. You mean the text where I went on about how unfairly attractive you are? That one? That one. Though for the record, you left out the part about my eyes. I was a little disappointed. I stared at my phone, a smile spreading across my face despite the insanity of this entire situation. Was Victoria Chen flirting with me? Your eyes are the color of dark honey and sunlight, I typed. They're intimidating in meetings and soft when you're thinking. You have this way of looking at people like you're reading their entire life story. It's terrifying and mesmerizing at the same time. See? Beautifully written in. We texted for another hour, the conversation flowing from work to life to dreams to fears. Victoria told me about growing up as the daughter of immigrants, about the pressure to succeed. About meeting Robert in grad school when they were both young and ambitious and thought they wanted the same things. When did you know? I asked. That you were attracted to women? A long pause, honestly. I'm still figuring that out. I thought I knew who I was, what I wanted. But lately, I've been questioning everything. Maybe I've been attracted to women all along and just never let myself acknowledge it. Or maybe this is something new. I don't have all the answers, Jess. I just know that what I feel for you is real and terrifying and unlike anything I've felt in a very long time. That's enough, I texted back. You don't need to have it all figured out. Robert will be back Friday night. I'm going to talk to him this weekend. My stomach dropped. Are you scared? Terrified. He doesn't deserve this. We've built a whole life together. But I can't keep lying to him, to myself. He deserves someone who loves him the way he should be loved. And I deserve a chance to figure out who I actually am. I'll be here. Whatever happens. Thank you. I should let you sleep. But Jess? Yeah. Thank you for tonight. For talking to me. For being patient. For being you. I fell asleep with my phone still in my hand. Victoria's last message glowing on my screen. The messages continued throughout the week, becoming a secret rhythm to my days. Victoria and I were scrupulously professional at the office. She'd even taken to being slightly cooler toward me in meetings, overcompensating to avoid suspicion. But at night, our phones would light up with conversations that grew increasingly intimate. She told me about her first crush in high school, a girl named Sarah who she convinced herself she just wanted to be friends with, about the moment she'd agreed to marry Robert, standing in her parents' living room while they beamed with pride, feeling a strange disconnect she'd buried under layers of, this is what success looks like. I told her about coming out in college, about my first girlfriend who'd broken my heart, about my parents' gradual acceptance, about how lonely it had been watching her every day at work and thinking she was forever out of reach. You were never out of reach, she texted one night. I was just too scared to reach back. By Thursday, Maya had cornered me in the break room. Okay, spill. You've been glued to your phone all week and you have this look. What look? Like you're starring in your own romance novel. Did something happen with Victoria? I glanced around to make sure we were alone. We've been texting. Maya's eyes went wide. Texting? Like work texting or not work texting? Jess. She grabbed my arm. Her husband. The HR implications. The fact that she's your boss. I know. But Maya, she's telling him this weekend. She's actually doing it, and if she doesn't? If she chickens out or decides to stay in our marriage? I've been asking myself the same question all week. Trying not to think about the possibility, but this was all just fantasy. That Victoria would go home Friday night and remember all the reasons why her stable, comfortable life was easier than the complicated truth. Then I'll deal with it, I said, with more confidence than I felt. Friday arrived with agonizing slowness. Victoria didn't text me all day, and I knew why Robert was home. And she was preparing for the conversation that would change both their lives. I went home early, unable to focus on work, and spent the evening reorganizing my apartment just to have something to do with my hands. My phone stayed silent. 7 p.m. became 8, became 9. At 10:15 p.m. Just as I was convincing myself that Victoria had decided to stay married and I'd never hear from her again, my phone finally buzzed. I told him. My hands shook as I typed. What happened? The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then, instead of a text, my phone started ringing. Victoria was calling me. Hello? I answered, my voice barely steady. Jess. She sounded exhausted, emotionally wrung out. Can you talk? Of course. Are you okay? I don't know. I heard her take a shaky breath. I told Robert everything. About questioning my sexuality, about my feelings for you, about not being happy in our marriage for longer than I wanted to admit. How did he take it? He cried. Her voice cracked. God, Jess, he cried. He said he'd known something was wrong for months, but kept hoping it would pass. He asked if there was anything he could do to fix it, and I had to tell him that this wasn't about him doing something wrong. It was about me finally being honest about who I am. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. This needed to happen. But it's so much harder than I expected. We've been together for 14 years. We have friends, a home, a whole life. Untangling all of that, she trailed off. Where are you now? In my car, parked outside a hotel. I packed a bag and left. I couldn't stay there tonight. Robert needs space, and honestly, so do I. Do you want to come here? The words were out before I could stop them. Silence on the other end. Double quotes. Jess, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not suggesting anything. I just don't want you to be alone in a hotel room right now. You can take my bed. I'll sleep on the couch. We don't even have to talk if you don't want to. But please don't be alone. More silence. Then, send me your address. 30 minutes later, there was a soft knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, Victoria stood there in jeans and an oversized sweater. A small overnight bag in her hand, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Hi. She said quietly, Hi, come in. She stepped inside and I closed the door behind her. Suddenly aware of how small my apartment was compared to what she was used to. How modest my life must seem. It's cozy, Victoria said, as if reading my thoughts. She managed a small smile. Very you. I took her bag, set it by the couch. Are you hungry? I could make something or order in or, Jess. She reached out and caught my hand, stopping my nervous rambling. Thank you. For this. I know I shouldn't be here, but I didn't know where else to go. Her hand was warm in mine. And for a moment, we just stood there in my tiny living room. The weight of everything that had happened settling between us. You can always come here, I told her. Whenever you need to. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, and I pulled her into a hug without thinking. She went stiff for just a second, then melted into me. Her face pressed against my shoulder as 14 years of careful control finally broke open. I held her while she cried, one hand rubbing slow circles on her back, and thought about how strange it was that the moment I'd been dreaming of for months, Victoria Chen in my apartment, in my arms had come like this. Not romantic or exciting, but raw and painful and real. I'm sorry, she finally said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. I don't usually fall apart like that. You're allowed to fall apart. You just blew up your whole life, for you. She looked at me, her mascara smudged, her carefully constructed persona completely stripped away. I just ended my marriage for you, and we haven't even kissed yet. That's insane, right? My breath caught. Is that something you want? To kiss me? I've wanted it since the day you walked into that first team meeting, Victoria admitted. But I'm also terrified. What if I'm terrible at this? What if I've built this up in my head and the reality is disappointing? What if I kissed her, just stepped forward and pressed my lips to hers, cutting off her spiral of worry? For a heartbeat, she froze. Then her hands came up to cup my face, and she was kissing me back. Soft and uncertain and perfect, when we finally pulled apart. Both breathing hard, Victoria laughed a real, genuine laugh that I'd never heard before. Okay, she said. Not disappointing. Not even a little bit? Not even a little bit. She touched her fingers to her lips, looking dazed. Jess, I need you to know that I can't jump into a relationship right away. I need time to figure out my divorce. My life, who I'm outside of being Mrs. Robert. Chun, it wouldn't be fair. To you or to me to rush into something when I'm still untangling everything else. No, but I also need you to know that this, she, gestured between us, is real for me. Terrifying and complicated and possibly a disaster in the making, but real. That's enough, I assured her. We can take this slow. Figure it out as we go. Victoria smiled, looking lighter than I'd seen her all week. Slow, right, says the woman who just kissed me approximately 3 minutes after I showed up at her door. You said you wanted to. I was just being accommodating. Is that what we're calling it? She was teasing now, and I realized I was seeing yet another side of Victoria Chen playful. Unguarded, free dot, we stayed up talking until 3 in the morning. Curled up on opposite ends of my couch with cups of tea going cold on the coffee table. Victoria told me more about her marriage, about the guilt she felt, but also the relief. I told her about my fears, about Maya's warnings, about how I'd convinced myself I was okay with pining forever because at least that way I couldn't get hurt. I'm going to hurt you, Victoria said quietly. Not on purpose, but I will. I'm going to make mistakes, have bad days, probably say the wrong thing at the wrong time. I've never done this before, dated a woman, left a marriage, figured out who I am at 42. I'm going to hurt you too, I replied. I'm 25 and impulsive, and I definitely don't have it all figured out either. But maybe we can hurt each other accidentally while trying our best, instead of perfectly and on purpose while pretending we're fine. She reached across the couch and laced her fingers through mine. I like the sound of that. Eventually, despite our best intentions to stay up all night talking, exhaustion won. I gave Victoria my bed and took the couch, though she protested that she should be the one on the couch since she'd imposed. You just had the worst day of your life, I argued. You get the bed. End of discussion. One of the worst days, she corrected. But also, somehow, one of the best. I was nearly asleep when I heard my bedroom door open. Victoria appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the light from my room. Jess? I can't sleep. Do you want to talk more? No, She hesitated. Would it be okay if I stayed out here with you? Not anything more, just... I don't want to be alone. I shifted on the couch, making room, and she climbed in next to me. It was a tight fit, our bodies pressed together, her head on my shoulder and my arm around her waist. It should have been awkward or uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. This is okay? I asked. This is perfect, she murmured. Already half asleep, I lay awake a while longer, listening to her breathing even out, feeling the weight of her trust in the way she'd let herself be vulnerable with me. Whatever happened next with our divorce, with our jobs, with this thing between us, we'd figure it out together. I woke up to an empty couch and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, I thought I dreamed the entire night Victoria showing up at my door, our kiss, falling asleep tangled together. Then I heard movement in my kitchen and sat up to find Victoria, still in the oversized sweater she'd worn last night, attempting to navigate my coffee maker. You're still here, I said, my voice rough with sleep. She turned, 2 mugs in hand, and smiled. Good morning? I hope you don't mind I made coffee. Or attempted to. I'm not sure I did it right. I took the mug she offered and our fingers brushed. The coffee was slightly too strong, but I didn't care. You didn't have to do this, I said. I wanted to. It's the least I could do after you let me invade your space last night. She settled onto the couch next to me, tucking her legs underneath her. In the morning light streaming through my windows, she looked softer somehow, more real. Her hair was slightly messy, her face free of makeup. I should probably head home soon. I need to figure out living arrangements, talk to a lawyer, start dealing with reality. How are you feeling about all of it? Victoria considered the question, sipping her coffee. Terrified, relieved, guilty, free, all of it at once. She looked at me over the rim of her mug, and wondering how we're going to handle Monday at the office. I'd been trying not to think about that. We pretend nothing happened? Can you do that? After last night? Honestly? No, I couldn't imagine walking into that office, seeing Victoria in her professional armor, and pretending I didn't know what she looked like, vulnerable and honest in my apartment. Pretending I didn't know how she kissed. We have to try, I said. At least until you're further along in the divorce process. If people found out now, it would look like I left my husband for my subordinate. Which, to be fair, is exactly what happened. She laughed without humor. God, when you say it like that, it sounds even worse. You didn't leave him for me. You left because you weren't happy. You were the catalyst, though. You made me realize what I was missing. Victoria set down her mug and turned to face me fully. Jess, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay, are you prepared for how messy this is going to get? The divorce will take months, maybe longer. People at work will talk once they find out, and they will find out eventually. Your career could be affected. You're young, you have your whole life ahead of you. Are you sure you want to tie yourself to someone who's in the middle of blowing up her life? I looked at her, this brilliant, complicated woman who'd somehow become the center of my universe, and knew my answer. I've never been more sure of anything. Victoria's eyes softened. She reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, her hand lingering against my cheek. Okay, she whispered. Okay, she left an hour later after we'd had breakfast and she'd changed back into yesterday's clothes. We stood at my door, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. I'll text you, Victoria said. Later, after I've dealt with some of the practical things. Be kind to yourself today. This is hard. You too. She hesitated, then leaned in and kissed me softly. Thank you, Jess, for everything. I watched her walk down the hallway to the elevator. And when she turned back to wave, I saw the woman I was falling for, scared but determined, messy but honest. Perfectly imperfect. Monday morning, true to form. Was absolutely surreal. Victoria arrived at the office in full armor and impeccable black suit. Hair in its usual meat bun, her expression unreadable. When she passed my desk, she gave me the same professional nod she gave everyone else. No one would have guessed that 2 nights ago she'd fallen asleep in my arms. You're being weird, Maya informed me at lunch, stabbing her salad with unnecessary force. Weirder than usual, I mean, I'm not being weird. You've checked your phone approximately 47 times. You jumped when Victoria walked past earlier. And you have that same dopey look from last week, except now it's mixed with anxiety, which is a deeply concerning combination. I glanced around the cafeteria to make sure no one was listening. She came over Friday night. Maya's fork clattered onto her plate. She what? After she told her husband. She needed somewhere to go, so Jess. Maya's voice was a harsh whisper. Please tell me you didn't sleep with your married boss. We didn't sleep together. We just slept, like actual sleeping. And talked. And maybe kissed once. Or twice. Oh my God. Maya put her head in her hands. This is a disaster. A beautiful romantic disaster, but still a disaster. She's getting divorced. It's happening. Is it though? Do you know how many people say they're leaving their spouse and then don't? Maya looked at me with genuine concern. I'm not trying to be the villain here, but I care about you. What if she changes her mind? What if the divorce gets complicated and she decides it's easier to stay? What happens to you then? I didn't have good answers to any of those questions. I'd been trying not to think about them. I have to believe she means it, I said finally. Because the alternative is that I've fallen for someone who's going to break my heart, and I can't function if I let myself believe that. Maya reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Okay, I'm here for you, whatever happens. But please, please be careful. The rest of the day crawled by. Victoria didn't text, which I understood, but which also made my anxiety spike. What if Maya was right? What if Victoria was already regretting everything? At 6 p.m., just as I was packing up to leave, my phone finally buzzed. Met with a lawyer today. It's really happening. Robert and I agreed to a trial separation while we work out the details. I'm moving into a furnished apartment next week. Relief flooded through me. I typed back, "How are you holding up?" Exhausted, scared, but certain I made the right choice. Can I call you later? Always. The call came at 10 p.m. and we talked until midnight. Victoria told me about the logistics of separation. The awkward dinner she'd had with Robert where they tried to be civil. The way her mother had cried when she'd explained everything. I didn't tell them about you, she said. Not yet. They already think I'm having a midlife crisis. If I add and I'm leaving him for a woman I work with, my mother might actually have a heart attack. Do you wish you'd done this differently? Gone to therapy, tried to save the marriage? We did try therapy, actually. 2 years ago, when things first started feeling off, the therapist kept asking us to dig deeper into our issues. And I kept thinking that the issue was that I didn't want to be married to a man. But I couldn't say that out loud. Couldn't even let myself think it clearly. She paused. No, I don't wish I'd done this differently. I wish I'd done it sooner. The next few weeks developed a strange rhythm. At work, Victoria and I maintained perfect professionalism. In meetings, she was demanding but fair, pushing me to do my best work without any hint of favoritism. If anything, she was slightly harder on me than the others, as if to compensate, but at night we texted and called for hours. She told me about apartment hunting, about dividing up 14 years' worth of shared possessions, about the strange freedom of choosing her own furniture for the first time in her adult life. I told her about my day, sent her photos of things that made me think of her, counted down the days until her separation was official and we could actually try being together. I'm moving into the new place this Saturday, she texted one Wednesday evening. Robert's staying in the house until we figure out what to do with it. This is real, Jess. This is actually happening. Do you need help moving? I shouldn't say yes. We're still trying to keep things quiet at work. It's Saturday. No one from work is going to see us. And do you need help? A pause, then, okay, thank you. Saturday morning, I showed up at the address she'd given me, a modern apartment building in a nice part of the city with coffee and determination. Victoria was already there, directing the movers with the same efficiency she brought to boardroom presentations. You came, she said when she saw me. And I heard the relief in her voice. Of course I came. We spent the day unpacking boxes, assembling furniture, arguing good-naturedly about where things should go. It was domestic and intimate and exactly what I'd wanted. In Victoria's new bedroom, hanging up clothes in her closet, I felt like I was being let into a part of her life she kept carefully compartmentalized. This is strange, Victoria said, standing in the middle of her new living room that evening, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. I've lived with Robert for so long, I'd forgotten what it's like to have my own space. How does it feel? Lonely, liberating, both. She turned to me. Thank you for being here today. I couldn't have done this without you. You could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that I could see the exhaustion around her eyes, the weight of everything she'd been carrying. Jess, I know I said we should take things slow, but right now all I want is for you to stay. Have dinner with me, even if it's just takeout eaten on the floor. Help me christen this new life. So I stayed. We ordered Thai food and ate it sitting on her new couch, the only piece of furniture fully assembled. We talked about everything and nothing, our plans for decorating, my latest project at work, a book we'd both read. It felt normal and easy and right. I should probably go, I said eventually, though I didn't move. Probably, Victoria agreed. Not moving either, it's late. It is. We looked at each other, the air between us charged with possibility and restraint. Stay, Victoria said quietly. Not for anything more than this. Just stay, I stayed. We fell asleep on our couch, the TV playing something neither of us was watching, her head on my shoulder and my fingers running through her hair. When I woke up in the early morning light, Victoria was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. What? I asked, my voice rough with sleep. I'm in love with you, she said simply. I thought you should know. My breath caught. Victoria, you don't have to say it back. I just needed to say it out loud. To stop pretending this is just a crush or a phase or a midlife crisis. She touched my face gently. I'm in love with you, Jess Martinez. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. I love you too, I said, because it was true and because I couldn't hold it in any longer. I've loved you for months. Victoria kissed me then, deep and certain and full of promise. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were smiling. So, she said. Now what? Now we figure it out, I replied. Together. The secret lasted 3 more weeks, Dot. We were careful, so careful. We didn't arrive at work together, didn't leave together, maintained our professional distance during office hours. But we underestimated office gossip and overestimated our ability to hide how we felt. The first sign was Jason from marketing, who cornered me by the coffee machine one morning. So, he said with a knowing smile, You and Victoria-chan? My heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about. Come on. I saw you two at Mercado last weekend. You were holding hands. Damn it. We've been so focused on avoiding people from work. We'd forgotten about the randomness of running into colleagues in a city this size. We're friends, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Right, friends. Jason's smile didn't falter. Look, I don't care, but you should know people are talking. I texted Victoria immediately. We have a problem. She called me into her office 10 minutes later. Her expression carefully neutral until the door closed. Jason saw us? She asked. Last weekend at the restaurant. He says people are talking. Victoria closed her eyes briefly and I saw her running through scenarios, calculating damage. Okay, we can handle this. How? Honestly, I don't know yet. She looked at me and I saw the fear underneath her composure. Jess, if HR gets involved, this could get complicated. You're my direct report. There are policies about workplace relationships, especially between supervisors and subordinates. What are you saying? I'm saying one of us might need to transfer to a different department, or... She didn't finish the sentence, but I heard the unspoken, or one of us might need to leave. My stomach dropped. You're not suggesting I quit? No, God, no. I would never ask you to do that. Victoria ran a hand through her hair, disrupting her perfect bun. I'm the one who should leave if it comes to that. You have a promising career here. I won't let my choices derail that. Victoria, you're the vice president of operations. You can't just leave. I can if I have to. She looked at me with fierce determination. Jess, you need to understand something. I didn't blow up my life just to lose you because of workplace politics. If it comes down to my career or us, I choose us. Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Victoria's assistant, Margaret, poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but HR wants to see you both, now. Victoria and I exchanged a look. This was it. The meeting was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd feared. Diane from HR sat across from us, her expression professionally sympathetic, a file folder open in front of her. We've received some concerns about your relationship, Diane said without preamble. Several employees have reported seeing you two together outside of work in what appeared to be romantic context. I'm not in a position to deny it, Victoria said calmly. Jess and I are seeing each other. We've been careful to maintain professionalism at work, but yes, we're in a relationship. I appreciated that she didn't try to lie or minimize it, even knowing what it might cost. Diane nodded, unsurprised. I see. And you're aware of our policy regarding relationships between supervisors and their direct reports? I am. Then you know that this violates company policy. One of you will need to transfer to a different team, or... Diane glanced at me apologetically. Given the power dynamic, we typically require the subordinate employee to transfer or resign. No, Victoria's voice was sharp. That's not acceptable. Jess has done nothing wrong. If anyone needs to face consequences, it should be me. I'm the supervisor. I'm the one who allowed this to happen while she was still on my team. Victoria, you're a VP, Diane said gently. You're much harder to replace. The practical solution is that I'll transfer, Victoria interrupted. Move me to a different department, make me a senior advisor, whatever you need to do. But Jess stays on the operations team. She's earned her position here. I found my voice. You can't do that. You love your job. I love you more. Victoria looked at me, and in front of HR and company policy and everything professional, she let me see exactly how she felt. Jobs are replaceable. You're not. Diane looked between us, something softening in her expression. Let me see what I can do. There might be another solution. Give me a few days to talk to the executive team. As we left the HR office, Victoria caught my hand briefly in the hallway. A fleeting touch that said everything words couldn't. I meant what I said in there, she told me. Whatever it takes. The solution came from an unexpected place. 3 days after our HR meeting, Victoria was called into a private session with the CEO, Richard Morrison. I spent those 3 days in agony, convinced she was being fired. Imagining worst-case scenarios, barely sleeping. When she finally texted me that evening, it was just, we need to talk. Can you come over? I was at her apartment in 20 minutes, my heart in my throat. Victoria opened the door and I couldn't read her expression. But then she really smiled. The kind of smile I'd only seen from her when we were alone. I have news. she said. Good news or bad news? Strange news. Come in. We sat on her couch and she took my hands in hers. Richard called me in today. He'd heard about the HR situation and I was prepared for the worst. But instead, he offered me a promotion. I blinked. A what? A promotion. They're creating a new position, Chief Strategy Officer. I'd be reporting directly to Richard, completely separate from operations. Different division, different team, different office floor. She was speaking quickly now, excitement creeping into her voice. It's actually a bigger role with more responsibility, and it solves the HR problem completely. You wouldn't be reporting to me in any capacity. That's amazing, but why? Why would they do that instead of just making one of us leave? Victoria laughed. Apparently Richard has known about me questioning my sexuality for years. His daughter is gay and he said he recognized the signs. When HR came to him about our situation, he saw it as an opportunity to restructure something he'd been considering anyway. She shook her head in disbelief. He told me he admired my courage in leaving my marriage and that he didn't want to lose me over company politics. So you're taking it? I already accepted. Victoria pulled me closer. Jess, this means we can be together. Really together. No more hiding, no more secret texts and stolen moments. We can actually date like normal people. The relief that washed over me was so intense it was almost painful. We can be together. If you still want to, after all this drama. I kissed her instead of answering, pouring months of wanting and waiting and worry into it. When we finally broke apart, both of us were smiling. I'll take that as a yes, Victoria murmured. That's a yes, I confirmed. That weekend, Victoria told her family about us. It went about as well as expected. Her mother cried and said she didn't understand. Her father was quietly disappointed. Her younger sister was surprisingly supportive. But Victoria stood her ground, explained that this wasn't a phase or a rebellion, that she'd spent too many years living for everyone else's expectations. I told them I'm in love with you, she reported over dinner that night, that you make me happier than I've been in years, that I'm not asking for their approval, just their acceptance. And my mother said she needs time. My father said as long as I'm happy, he'll try to understand. My sister said it's about time I stopped being so boring. Victoria smiled. It's not perfect, but it's honest. That's all I can ask for. On Monday, the announcement went out about Victoria's promotion. People congratulated her, asked about her. New role made no mention of the real reason for the change. By Thursday, when Victoria and I left the building together, walked out side by side for the first time without hiding, it barely caused a ripple. This is surreal, I said as we headed to my car. I keep waiting for someone to stop us, tell us we're doing something wrong. We're not doing anything wrong anymore. Victoria laced her fingers through mine. Just two people in love, figuring it out. The conference room was packed for Victoria's presentation on the new strategic initiatives. I sat in the back row. Ostensibly there because the operations team needed to coordinate with strategy, but really because I loved watching her work. 6 months in, and she still took my breath away. Questions? Victoria asked, finishing her presentation. Marcus from finance raised his hand. How do you plan to address the timeline concerns? As Victoria launched into a detailed explanation, I felt my phone buzz. A text from her. Stop staring at me like that. People will notice. I bit back a smile and texted back. Can't help it. You're brilliant when you're being strategic. You're impossible. Dinner at my place tonight? Our place, I corrected. I moved in with Victoria 2 months ago after her divorce was finalized. We talked about taking it slow, not rushing things. But one night I realized I was spending every evening at her apartment anyway, and it had seemed silly to keep paying rent on a place I never used. Our place, she texted back. And I could hear the smile in her words. After the meeting, Maya cornered me in the hallway. You two are disgustingly happy, she informed me. It's actually offensive to those of us who are single. You're the one who told me to be careful. I know, and I'm glad I was wrong. Maya's expression softened. Seriously, Jess, I'm happy for you. Victoria's good for you. You're good for her. It's annoyingly perfect. That evening, I came home to find Victoria in the kitchen attempting to cook. She'd gotten better over the past few months, but her skills were still questionable. Please tell me you didn't try the recipe from that cooking show again, I said, dropping my bag by the door. I didn't. I ordered from that Italian place you like. She turned from the stove, where she'd been heating up the food to make it look homemade, and smiled at me. How was the rest of your day? Better now that I'm here. We ate dinner on our couch, a habit we developed from those early days in this apartment. Victoria told me about a frustrating call with a vendor, and I told her about the project I was leading, and it was all so beautifully ordinary that I sometimes still couldn't believe this was my life. I've been thinking, Victoria said, setting down her fork. About what's next for us, my heart skipped. What do you mean? I mean that we've been living together for 2 months. And we've been together for nearly 8 months, and I'm more sure about you than I've ever been about anything. She reached over and took my hand. Jess, I don't want to rush you or pressure you, but I need you to know that this is it for me. You're it for me. Are you proposing? I asked, half joking, half hopeful. Not yet. But someday if you'll have me. She brought my hand to her lips, kissed my knuckles. I just wanted you to know where my head is at. That I'm not going anywhere. That when I left my marriage, when I risked everything to be with you, it wasn't just because I was unhappy. It was because I found something real. I moved closer, wrapped my arms around her. You're it for me too. Has been since that first team meeting when you completely eviscerated my analysis and then helped me rebuild it better. Victoria laughed. I wasn't that harsh. You were terrifying and brilliant. And I was so gone for you even then. Even when I was married and unavailable and completely inappropriate. Especially then. I pulled back to look at her. But I like this version better. The one where I get to kiss you whenever I want. Oh, really? Whenever you want? Whenever I want, I confirmed and kissed her to prove it. Later that night, lying in bed with Victoria asleep beside me, I thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, I'd sent a text message by mistake and thought my life was over. Now, that mistake felt like the beginning of everything. My phone lit up with a text from Maya. Remember when you were convinced that texting Victoria was the worst thing that ever happened to you? Look at you now, living your best domestic lesbian life. I expect to be maid of honor when she proposes. I smiled in the darkness and typed back, you'll be the first to know. Victoria stirred beside me, her arm tightening around my waist, even in sleep. I set my phone aside and settled into her embrace. Feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her body against mine. It hadn't been easy. There had been complications and consequences, hard conversations, and harder choices. But lying there in our apartment, in our bed, with our future stretching out before us, it had all been worth it. My married boss had become my everything, and I wouldn't change a single moment of how we got here. The company holiday party was in full swing. The hotel ballroom decorated with tasteful winter decor, colleagues mingling with drinks in hand. Victoria and I arrived together, no longer needing to hide or pretend. There's Richard, Victoria said, nodding toward our CEO. I should go say hello. Go, I'll find Maya. But before she could leave, Victoria turned back and kissed me right there in the middle of the holiday party, in front of everyone from work. It was quick but unmistakable, a public declaration that we were long past hiding. I love you, she said simply. I love you too. As she walked away, I caught sight of a few newer employees looking surprised and overheard one whisper to another, wait, they're together? Yeah, someone else responded. It's actually kind of a romantic story. She left her husband for her. I didn't hear the rest, but I smiled anyway. Let them talk. Let them wonder. We'd survived worse than office gossip. Maya appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. You two are still disgustingly in love. It's been a year. Shouldn't you be in the comfortable sweatpants phase by now? We wear sweatpants all the time at home. You know what I mean? But Maya was smiling. Although, speaking of home, I have to ask, is that a ring box I saw in Victoria's coat pocket when I took it from her? My heart stopped. What? A small velvet box? Very suspicious. Maya's grin widened. I'm just saying, if someone were to propose tonight at this very festive holiday party, I would be completely ready to cry happy tears. I looked across the room to where Victoria was chatting with Richard, animated and confident and beautiful. As if sensing my gaze, she looked up and our eyes met. She smiled, and I knew with absolute certainty that whatever happened next Whatever challenges we still had to face, we'd face them together. Hey, Jess? Maya nudged me. Victoria's walking back over here. And she looks nervous. Adorably, obviously about to propose, nervous. My breath caught as Victoria approached, her hand in her pocket, her eyes never leaving mine. Jess, she said when she reached me, loud enough that people nearby started to notice. Can I talk to you for a minute? Of course. But instead of leading me somewhere private, Victoria stayed right where we were, in the middle of the holiday party with our colleagues starting to turn and watch. A year ago, Victoria said, her voice carrying across the now quieting room, I made the best decision of my life. Actually, that's not quite right. A year ago, I made the scariest decision of my life, and it turned out to be the best one. Oh my God, this was happening. You changed everything for me, Jess. You made me braver, more honest, more myself than I've ever been. She pulled the small velvet box from her pocket, and I heard Maya gasp beside me. I know we said we'd take things slow. I know we've already broken every rule about how relationships are supposed to go. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. She opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring that was so perfectly my style I wanted to cry. Will you marry me? The entire ballroom had gone silent, watching, waiting. I was vaguely aware of phones being pulled out to record this moment, of smiles and tears on the faces around us. But mostly, I was aware of Victoria, her hand shaking slightly as she held out the ring, her eyes bright with hope and love and that same vulnerability she'd shown me in my apartment that first night. Yes, I said, and then louder, yes. The Ideshans and Jib, the room erupted in applause as Victoria slipped the ring onto my finger and pulled me into a kiss that was definitely not appropriate for a work party. But we were past caring about appropriate. I love you, she whispered against my lips. I love you too. Even if you did just propose to me in front of the entire company. I wanted everyone to know. No more hiding, no more secrets. Just us. Maya appeared with champagne and tears streaming down her face. I called IT. I'm going to be the best maid of honor in the history of weddings. Richard approached with a broad smile. Congratulations, you two. Although, Victoria, you might have warned me. I would have arranged for better champagne. As our colleagues surrounded us with congratulations and questions about wedding plans, I looked at Victoria and marveled at how far we'd come. From that mistaken text message to this moment engaged in love, surrounded by people who supported us. No regrets? I asked her quietly while everyone else was talking. Not a single one, Victoria replied, placing her fingers through mine. Best mistake I ever received. I laughed, remembering that anxious night when I'd thrown my phone across my apartment, convinced my life was over. Sometimes the best things in life start with a mistake. Sometimes the scariest leap leads to the softest landing. And sometimes texting your married boss turns out to be the beginning of forever.